What is going on, everybody? AHS Rules back again with another video, and it is Friday, so it is a Ring of Honor television review. But not only is this a TV review, but it is a predictions video as well, as this is the last episode of Ring of Honor television before Death Before Dishonor, which takes place tonight, and I'll provide my predictions for the event later on in this video. Last week at this time, we knew 0 matches. We knew we'd have a world title match, we'd have a television title match. We did not know who those champions would be facing, but now, not only do we know who they're facing, we have 12 full matches announced for Death Before Dishonor, so we got a lot to go through in this video. And we'll be starting off with the television review, episode number 21. The first matchup is a pure rules match, Daniel Garcia versus Jason Geiger. Before the match starts, we get highlights from the press conference announcing the pure title match to take place at Death Before Dishonor between Katsuyori Shibata and Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia mentions that he's been in Ring of Honor for a minute, and that it is his house, and he's not going to let someone come in and disrespect him in his house. Now, I do not know if this is the only thing that Shibata said during this press conference, but it's the only thing shown in the highlights that he mentioned that he does not like Daniel Garcia's dance. And it's very fitting, as when this matchup between Jason Geiger started off, Daniel Garcia starts it off by doing his dance where he does this. I'm not going to do the full dance, because I'd have to stand up and all that, but maybe one day. But it is also fitting as Jason Geiger teases Garcia and does his version of this dance, which Garcia definitely has the better version of it. But that did not stop, as Geiger was able to lock in an armbar on Garcia at one point, which makes Garcia use a rope break. And then Garcia fights back by locking Geiger into a body lock, with Geiger fighting out and hitting a suplex. But Garcia has the advantage after that and uses a Boston Crab to tease Shibata, a move that he teaches the young lions in the dojo, and follows that up with a Dragon Sleeper / Sharpshooter to win the matchup. After the matchup, Shibata comes out, and him and Daniel Garcia have a face-to-face. Like I said, Daniel Garcia versus Katsuyori Shibata for the pure championship at Death Before Dishonor. The next matchup is Trish Adora versus Utami. I know I mispronounced it. Utami Hayashishita, which is a long name. I will be 100% honest with you. Not familiar with Stardom, obviously, and I will make special note that she did not get an entrance, and I'll bring that back up at the end. But Trish Adora spends the beginning portion of the bout working the left arm of Utami. Utami fights back with forearms and some German suplexes, and Trish hits an impressive German suplex of her own. But it does not stop, as Utami is a blue thunderbomb for a 2 count and follows it up with a spinning Argentine powerbomb for the win. Now, a couple things I wanted to make note of. A, if she has a name for it, I do not know it. I Googled it. I researched it. What I found was the spinning Argentine powerbomb. Thing 2, the commentators did not announce, she won with her finishing. So, because I like being professional, like if there's the name for the finisher, I like saying it. But in this case, it was not announced. So, I guess that's on me, but it's not really on me. And thing 3, I mentioned that Utami did not even get an entrance. She was already in the ring and the match started. This is one of the rare instances where the person doesn't get an entrance and wins the matchup. So I want to make special note of that. Next, we get the finals of the TV title #1 contenders tournament that started last week, with it being Shane Taylor versus Dalton Castle. Castle tries to grapple in the beginning of the matchup, but Taylor does not let him get a hold of him, and then targets Dalton Castle's injured ribs. While it does take a while, Castle finally builds up enough momentum and is able to hit suplex Shane Taylor, and what is even more impressive, was able to win the matchup with Bangarang. So, now, Dalton Castle won the television title #1 contenders tournament and will be facing Samoa Joe at Death Before Dishonor. The next matchup, a pure rules match, Josh Woods versus James Stone. Woods dominated this matchup, winning with a messed up Anarchy suplex in the corner. The Anarchy suplex is when he puts in this case, James Stone's feet in the corner and then leads him to suplex, but it did not even have, it was just very much, he tried to put him on the top rope, He did not land on the top rope at all. He just went straight to the ground, and they said, screw it, let's just finish the match. So that is how this matchup went. The next matchup, a proving ground match. Athena versus Nikita. Prior to this match, we get the announcement of Athena versus Willow Nightingale 3 at Death Before Dishonor. This match was set up last week after Athena lost to Willow Nightingale on Rampage in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament for the women's side of the bracket. And then obviously Willow Nightingale went on to win the whole tournament. And so the board of directors, mainly Tony Khan, made a decision that Athena's won one matchup, Willow Nightingale's won one matchup. Now it's time to have the tiebreaker. And Athena did not want anything to do with this. She went to Stokely, she went to Jerry Lynn, and she said she was going to go to Tony Khan and did not want to participate in this match. But Tony Khan pretty much just said everything they already said. They've had great matchups in the past, and it's time to have the tiebreaker matchup. And Athena is very pissed off about this. Pissed off to the point where she wrestles the match in her street gear, the gear that she arrived in the arena with, the gear that she was in the backstage segment with, and she did not even want to participate in this match. As she spins, she sits in the corner, and Nikita comes up to her like, hey, it's time to have a match, and Athena follows that up with a massive forearm and wins this matchup. And then after the matchup, Willow Nightingale comes out, and they have a face-to-face to set up their match at Death Before Dishonor. The next matchup, the Boys versus the Righteous. Dutch attacks the Boys before the match even starts. The Boys never recover, and the Righteous win the matchup. Then after the matchup, Evil Uno came out, and while he does not attack like he did last week, the Righteous's opponents, he has a chair, and he just keeps clapping it back and forth. He's like, is this what you want? As Stu Grayson attacks the Boys. And we will see the Dark Order versus the Righteous and Stu Grayson at Death Before Dishonor. More to talk about that later, obviously. The next matchup is Nicole Matthews versus Layla Hirsch. Ian Riccaboni made note that this is Nicole Matthews' first match in Ring of Honor in 14 years. Just want to make note of that. We get groundwork to begin the matchup with Hirsch landing a bunch of elbows while on the ground, and then she wins the matchup with a running knee. And then we get our main event, 4-corner this match, the Kingdom versus the Bollywood Boys, versus the Workhorsemen versus Darius Martin and Action Andretti. Anthony Henry and Mike Bennett start the match off, and they take out the Bollywood Boys and Martin Andretti off the aprons. That way it leaves the Kingdom and the Workhorsemen to face each other. But Martin and Andretti take offense to that, and they get into the ring, and they spend a great majority of the matchup fighting the Workhorsemen and the Kingdom off. Make note that the Bollywood Boys were not involved in this, and the fans really wanted to see the Bollywood Boys involved. I believe it is their hometown area, so they had the hometown support, and they finally were able to tag in, but it does not matter, as the Kingdom win the matchup with a Proton Pack. So it's a very interesting episode of Ring of Honor. I do like that every matchup tonight involves somebody that has a match at Death Before Dishonor. So that was a special little note I wanted to make note of. A special little mention I wanted to make note of. I didn't want to say a note twice in that sentence. But now it is time for the predictions portion of the video. It's an interesting card. We got 12 matchups, 4 on the 0-hour pre-show, then 8 on the main card. So, the 4 matchups on the 0-hour pure rules match. Josh Woods versus Tracy Williams. I'm going to predict Josh Woods. He's been on a bit of a winning streak in singles competition. And while I do like Tracy Williams in his matchups in Ring of Honor, he very rarely wins anymore, which is weird compared to the way the last era of Ring of Honor, he had a lot of matchups there he ended up winning. But Josh Woods, I predict to win this matchup. Next matchup, AR Fox versus Shane Taylor. I'm going to predict AR Fox, as I believe he has an international title match against Orange Cassidy next week. And it would look very weird if he has a title match coming up and he loses his last matchup before the title match. Next, a very interesting matchup, Layla Hirsch versus Trish Adora. Now, there's a bit of a tension build here, I guess is the better word to use, as Layla Hirsch was the one to substitute for Maria Kanellis in the Infantry Kingdom 6-person tag match a couple weeks ago. She ended up beating or helping the Kingdom win that matchup. So at least they do have history. And I'm going to predict Layla Hirsch, as she is on a winning streak since returning. And Trish Adora lost tonight. I don't like. she won. I wouldn't be surprised, but, you know, I think Layla Hirsch has more momentum on her side. And then the last matchup for the 0 Hour, Action Andretti and Darius Martin versus the Workhorsemen. I'm picking Andretti and Martin. Now, to the main card. The first matchup, Commander versus Gravity, who is, I always have to make note of this, Bandito's brother. I can't say always. Bandito's brother. He's only competed in Ring of Honor once. That was a couple weeks ago against Ray Phoenix in the main event of that episode of Ring of Honor television. Commander occasionally competes on Ring of Honor, majority of times in multiple man tag matchups. I'm going to pick Commander. He's more familiar to the Ring of Honor audience, but this would be a big victory for Gravity if he was to win, but I'm going to predict Commander. Now, next matchup. This is a big card because the main card, we got this matchup, and then this next match I'm going to talk about is a stipulation match. Then all the other matchups are championship matches. So, like I said, always a big deal when ROH has a pay-per-view. This matchup that I'm talking about now is a fight without honor. The Righteous and Stu Grayson versus the Dark Order, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, and Evil Uno. I'm going to predict the Dark Order because they've shown the more aggressive side of them, and I think that this is going to lead to Stu Grayson realizing that he made a mistake or he wants to be back in the Dark Order. So I'm going to predict the Dark Order to win this matchup. I will admit, I was very surprised that this was announced as a fight without honor, as when I saw the graphic for it, I'm like, oh, okay, they're having a 6-man tag. It's in very small words, fight without honor. This should be a bigger deal. Fight without honor is obviously a big matchup in Ring of Honor, so will be interesting to say the least. I need to find another word to use because I've said interesting at least 10 times in this video. So I'm gonna change the words. Next, another 6-man matchup, this one being for the 6-man tag team titles. The Embassy, Brian Cage, and the Gates of Agony versus Ryusuke Taguchi, Master Wato, and Leon Ruffin. I'm picking the Embassy. Now, there's a saying that I have, and I've definitely said it in a couple of my videos, but it's just a saying that I follow in life. Behind every joke is a little bit of truth. And last week, I was joking like, the thing I don't like about the 6-man tag team division is that it is the Embassy, and whenever the Embassy has a matchup, it's just against 3 guys that they just put together out of nowhere. And the main reason I was joking about it was I wish they would go against like actual trios that have team names. And the other like 2 trios that have team names, they're obviously facing off on this card. But the main reason I was like joking about it is because whenever I had to talk about it, if I was talking about the Embassy, I'd say the Embassy. Because, like, they have a team name. Where at the other side, I have to mention all 3 guys, and it just takes a while. So, like, it is a joke. It's not like, oh, my God, like, ha-ha. It's not like a funny joke. It's just, like, something I wanted to point out. And, again, it's just another case of the Embassy facing 3 guys that they randomly put together. But I don't think it'll be a bad matchup. Next, another tag team matchup. This one for the tag team titles. The Lucha Bros versus the Kingdoms versus the Best Friends versus Aussie Open, the return of Mark Davis. And it's been a while since we've seen Kyle Fletcher. The Lucha Bros have not defended these tag team titles on ROH television, but I did look it up. They have defended them twice on AEW, once against QT Marshall and Powerhouse Hobbs, and then once against Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. So obviously my complaint here is that we never really see the Lucha Bros defend the titles. The Kingdom have been on here every week. The Best Friends, I know that Chuck Taylor a couple weeks ago had a match against Claudio, but I don't know how many times we've seen Chuck Taylor and Trent actually face off. And then Aussie Open obviously had a lot of momentum going for him before Mark Davis got injured. That being said, I'm going to pick the Lucha Bros, and hopefully we see more tag team title matches out of them after this. But I would not be surprised if Aussie Open wins this matchup. Next matchup for the TV title, Samoa Joe versus Dalton Castle. I am picking Samoa Joe. He's had the television championship for a long time. I don't know how many days he has left until he breaks the all-time record for most days as television champion. I probably should have looked that up, but I'm going to imagine he holds the championship until he breaks that record. Now, these last 3 matchups, I will admit, another saying that I have, mainly when I do my ROH TV reviews, is my favorite matchups to watch is the ones where I have no clue who's going to win this. And with these 3 matchups, I feel they were very 50-50. Anybody could win these. Where all the other matchups, they kind of like leans into one side, or is some person has more momentum compared. But with these last 3 matchups, I believe they're 50-50. Anybody can win them. The first one I'll be talking about is a pure championship matchup. Pure rules, obviously. Katsuyori Shibata versus Daniel Garcia. We've been teased for this matchup for a number of weeks, kind of months, as Garcia, every time Shibata had a match, he would be watching, he would come out, and he'd tease wanting to be the champion. And obviously these 2 men were involved in the 4-way match at Forbidden Door for the International Championship. So now we finally get the one-on-one matchup between the 2. And the reason I'm going to pick Katsuyori Shibata, because he's had a good reign. I don't think it would end it. And I won't lie, I was very surprised when he did win it at Super Card of Honor. But Daniel Garcia hasn't. He's been on Ring of Honor to like in pure rules matchups, but I feel Shibata, there would be more likely to use in Ring of Honor, where Garcia has a lot of things going on in AEW at the moment. But I wouldn't be surprised if Garcia wins, because like I said, Shibata is not a Ring of Honor competitor. He's a New Japan star. So it's like at any moment, New Japan will be like, okay, well, you know, you're not going to use him that much. So I do think it's 50-50, but I'm leaning towards Shibata winning it. Next matchup for the Women's Championship, Athena versus Willow Nightingale, number 3. Athena won the first time in a women's title match. Willow Nightingale won the second time around, that one being in the last week in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, the long tournament name to say. Now we have the third matchup, and like I said, this is 50-50. Athena has had this long, dominant reign. She has won 30 straight matchups in Ring of Honor. They didn't make special note that her undefeated streak ended, obviously, because she lost to Willow, but that wasn't in ROH. But in ROH, she's won 30 straight matchups. And Willow had a lot of momentum, as she just won the Owen Hart tournament. She just beat Athena. It would look very weird if Athena was to beat Willow after, again, she has all this on her side. So, like I said, the main reason it's difficult for me to pick Willow to win is I've enjoyed Athena's title reign, and I don't know what the hell she would do without the championship, because I've gotten used to her with the championship. So, like I said, I think way too much is on Willow Nightingale's side to lose, so I'm going to pick Willow, and I'd be a winner regardless, because either I'd be right, because Willow wins, or if Athena wins, I'd be happy, because like I said, I've enjoyed her reign as women's champion and would be able to continue on. So I'm a winner in that situation, but I'm also a loser in that situation because I might be wrong. Now we get to the main event matchup. Very, very interesting. I know I said I wasn't going to use that word, but this definitely is the definition of being interesting. Claudio Castagnoli versus the Bastard Pac. Now, this matchup was originally supposed to be Claudio Castagnoli versus Eddie Kingston, but Eddie Kingston's in the G1, so they needed to find a replacement. It ended up being Mark Briscoe, and as much as I love Mark Briscoe, I hated that, because Mark Briscoe has talked constantly about being television champion, and it kind of felt forced for him to challenge for the World Championship. And again, get well soon to Mark Briscoe. He's out with an injury, and so now we did not know who was going to be challenged for this World Championship until the day before the event, as they announced that it will be Claudio Castagnoli versus the Bastard Pac after the events of Blood and Guts, and the Bastard Pac walking out on his BCC. He wasn't really a member of the BCC, but obviously, like on the posters and the match graphics, it was like the Blackpool Combat Club. So his BCC teammates at Blood and Guts, and it did feel very forced. And I'm not gonna say like I hated the Blood and Guts match, but I didn't really like it because I felt that they tried to do a lot in the Blood and Guts match, and it just took away a little bit from the match itself. Especially, like, again, I know Blood and Guts is kind of like War Games, but like a rule of War Games is if someone leaves the cage, that means they surrender, the match is done. So in this instance, in Blood and Guts, the Bastard Pac walked out. Also, Takeshita walked out. That's just, again, that's a small nitpick about Blood and Guts, like I said. It's not actually War Games, but somewhat like War Games. So, I feel that it's very forced, but it's not a terrible thing because it's going to lead to a great and crazy matchup to take place. And again, it's very 50-50. It'd be very random for the Bastard Pac, who also, according to Pro Fight DB, would be his first Ring of Honor match since 2007. Would just be very random for the Bastard Pac to return, and he's just back in ROH, and he's world champion. But I'd very much enjoy that, because I think the Bastard Pac being world champion, and you'd have crazy matchups, where Claudio, we have not seen him on ROH as much recently, because he's had so much going on in AEW. So, and also, I know that they really would want to do Claudio Castagnoli versus Eddie Kingston down the line, but there's so much being told with that story that the World Championship's not needed. So I very much would enjoy a world title change, especially with it being somebody as great as the Bastard Pac. But I'm going to pick Claudio Castagnoli just the same, because, again, I feel that if he was facing Mark Briscoe, he would win that matchup. Because, like I said, I think the big build is for Mark Briscoe to win the television championship. So I never thought that, the main reason, again, another reason I was not interested in that matchup was Claudio's just going to win. And it's just I kind of feel like we're wasting a main event matchup. Where with the Eddie, it would be 50-50, but I lean more toward Claudio winning. Where, again, this time around, if, we're talking about the other two matchups, Claudio's winning. So I feel that the thought process is, we need to keep the title on Claudio. So that's why I predict him winning this matchup. But again, just like I said with the women's title matchup, if the Bastard Pac wins, I would not be upset, because it would be a change that I very much would enjoy, especially because I feel that, again, talking about the women's title, I think I've enjoyed Athena with the women's championship. With Claudio, I haven't, because he hasn't been on Ring of Honor consistently, where Athena has been on Ring of Honor consistently. Now, again, a problem might be the Bastard Pac. If he was to win the championship, he wouldn't be on there consistently. But that is a problem that... Also, crazy, just now thought of this. The Lucha Bros are in ROH. The Death Triangle, I don't think have been officially broken up. But the Death Triangle, as all the champions, would actually make sense. But is it make enough sense for me to change my pick? No, because I already wrote down in pen that I picked Claudio. But I just now put that together, because I just looked down, I saw the Lucha Bros, and I'm like, boom. So, just craziness. So, we have 12 matchups. Just reviewed this whole episode of Ring of Honor. Just gave my predictions for this pay-per-view. You'll hear some of my thoughts next week on next week's ROH TV review. That will be, for the last time I'll say it in this video, an interesting episode, because I don't know when they're going to tape it or how they're going to tape it, but I imagine that a lot of the aftermath of Death Before Dishonor will take place on next week's episode of television. So that will be telling when the time comes. So hopefully you watch this. Hopefully we can all enjoy Death Before Dishonor in a safe environment, safe and healthy environment. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.